I'm sure that here are so many experts related to the water resources who are presented. For instance, engineers, and then from Nepal and others. So it would be great if you also put not only the questions but like opinions, maybe like 2-3 minutes. That will really enhance the success of the seminar. So please raise your hands and then just briefly introduce yourself.
Hello, namaste. First of all, thank you so much for such a fascinating talk. And basically, I have a few questions as well as some comments. Let me start with the Joint Secretary. So he had stated a very good point about like inland water, like really kind of leakages. But I think that he has completely missed the Indian part because it's between Nepal and India. So he has stated all the benefit to Nepal with this kind of project. So what is the benefit to the India doing this kind of project? Because this is an international relation, like a relation between Nepal as well as India. So what I personally believe is if there is no benefit for India on this kind of project, I'm sure it won't go up. Similarly, he talked about like the feasibility of the project. We all know that there are so much of feasibility of the project in Nepal that has been stuck since decades. And even this can be kind of similar one. And another most important part is, we all know the economic status of Nepal. So this kind of like a project, I don't think like a Nepal can invest in this kind of project, and since there are so many number of projects that Nepal needs to invest. And if there is no economic support from India, I don't think even this is possible again. And also, India won't allow other kinds of support, like maybe financial support from other countries or other agencies. So what I personally believe is like, obviously this is he stated like this is no more dream. But still, this being a relation between Nepal and India, it may be a dream until and unless we don't see the benefit for the India due to this kind of project. So another, I would like to put a few comments, maybe note, like I'm talking this kind of things based on my research experience with this Mahakali Treaty, Nepal-India Water Relation, and some years of working with India-China Institute. So like basically there's so much of barriers that we just talk about, like Kosi, Ganda, there's so much of barriers. So is it possible, like what was the objective of those barriers, and is it possible that they will dismantle the barriers and do some other way of navigation for the sake of benefit of Nepal only? Or we are missing like what is the benefit for India? I think we also need to find out that. And unless we're very much clear with the benefit to the India, I don't think it's just will be the talk for us and just think like a diva sapna kind of thing. So Dr. Uttam stated very clearly that, and even he stated like we need to focus on who give what. Exactly. We also need to focus like who give what, like maybe who will give, India will give what and Nepal will give what. But here, and also he has stated like a past mistakes needs to be like a recorrect kind of thing. But we are very much hopeful when Narendra Modi visited Nepal after 17 years. We are very much positive. But since EPC, this report has been already completed by both the nations, and it has been already more than 3 months that he's not receiving that. So how can we expect that maybe this can go very easily?
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe like you got it, please.
Can we have your name and place of where you work?
Oh yeah, sorry. Maybe, my name is Navraj Lama, and currently I am associated with the Durham University. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Kamal Gatwa, a student of Interdisciplinary Water Resource Management at Pokhara University. I'm quite excited with the first statement of this seminar. Inland waterways is no more dream of Nepal, but none of our panelists except Deepak sir had focused on the political dimensions and policy-based treaties and agreements. We have done some 58 years in Gandak region and 64 years in Kosi Basin. These agreements had so much issues we all are aware about. And the Joint Secretariat for Kosi Basin and Gandak Basin had been discussing for more than 50 years, and we have not concluded those issues yet. So these documents produce so backyard neighbor dream for inland projects, not the navigation projects. And the most policy we have for water resources Water Resource Act 1992, it keeps navigation on 7th place. Nor of our policy had dreamed navigational channels in our country itself. So, being a civil engineer, I am quite excited about the project. But if we look it on a policy basis, I'm hopeless for this project to happen in my generation or in my offspring's generation. We need to really rethink all about how the box are calculated. It is one of the opportunity we might get in decades to rethink and revisit all the agreements we made with India. And our Madhav sir, he was discussing about that we could have navigations with Bangladesh too, but we neither had the trilateral agreements. We had only bilateral agreements on water courses with India. So this is another issue we really need to think before enhancing this project. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Rajan Sharma, the former president in the Freight Forwarders Association, being into logistics and transportation business for the last 32 years. And I can only speak of my experience. I'm not seeing it from the perspective of, political, economic or macroeconomic, but looking into my own perspective of the cost that is involved in transportation, okay? First of all, what we need to understand is, any treaty that we make or any agreements that we make with India or with any other nation, that has to be incorporated in the bilateral mechanism, which has not been done. Until unless it is incorporated in the bilateral mechanism, nothing happens here. See, inland waterways is no more a treaty. Okay, it was never, and it is not now also. Waters were flowing, we were moving around, everything was going on. But when it comes to operationalizing it, to bring in a container at Calcutta, what Sorirana said, it is not the cost of the freight, it is the time that takes, the hurdles that are there, the documents that are required, and it is the cost that the Indian port authorities, because every government entity has become a profit earning center now, even in Nepal. Not only, Calcutta Port Trust is a profit earning center. They have to earn their own money. So the cost is very, very high there. Shipping companies. And now what Mr. Belbasi said is, he was negotiating or he was talking with the Indian private sector. Indian private sector has been sucking everything out of Nepal. They don't want this to happen. Who is going to manage the port harbors? Who is going to manage the terminals? It is him. What happened in the case of our terminals in Birganj? When we brought in the ICD in Birganj, everybody in the similar seminar said there will be 20% to 30% reduction in the logistic cost of Nepal. Is it happening now? No. We are pouring in so much of money from World Bank and from other nations, from World Bank, from ADB, under WTO on trade facilitation. Has trade been facilitated? No. The way of doing business is becoming more and more complicated. So, the Indian ambassador rightly said, everything is possible, but we need to bring about the change in trade and transit treaty. Can that happen? Do we have the government capability of making that negotiation with the Indian government? We don't. I've also worked with the Nepal government. The other issue is, there is no focal ministry. There is a focal ministry. All this issue is not the work of a Ministry of Water or Water Resource. This is the work of the Ministry of Commerce and Supplies. There is an Intermodal Transport Development Board. What is transport mode of transport? Rickshaw vada, thela gada, truck vada, from rail to trucks. All this intermodalism, from taxi stands, bus stands, everything comes on the intermodalism. So where is intermodalism? Nobody is representing from the Ministry of Commerce. The other issue is, what type of cargo is it going to have? We don't have backload from Nepal. It is feasible. If you ask somebody that, air, rail and road, which is cheaper, which is, everybody will say rail is cheaper in compared to road, and then air is much more expensive. But there are certain type of commodities and certain types of volume where air is cheaper, as well as when you're talking about bringing it by rail, even when you're bringing it by truck, it is cheaper than bringing it by rail if the weight is less than 14 metric tons. So what is happening is, the government of Nepal is also turning out all its institutions to be a profit earning center. They are leasing it out to the private sector, and private sector is earning money out of it, and the trade is not facilitated. The actual cost is not coming there. The actual cost of rail transportation within India per kilometer, and the rail transportation for 702 kilometers from Calcutta to Birganj, such a vast difference. And because the truck drivers will create a havoc and not allow the rail to move, the 14 metric tons to below has been given to them by making the freight cost cheaper for truck transportation rather than for rail transportation. So if all these things are going to happen, and if we don't make a very clear-cut trade-based analysis, yes, we can say, just simply seeing it from the political point of view, from economic point of view, from engineering point of view, as the ex-minister recently said, it says, I've gone through the reports of ONTAD and other reports also. In India itself, inland waterways consist of 0.5% of the total transportation. The private sector in India themselves have criticized the inland waterway movements because of its higher cost. I can give you all the details. Why? Because of the bureaucratic hassles. Why? Because of the harbor operation costs. Why? Because of the terminal operation costs. Are we Nepalese ready to operate our own terminals? Now, having said this, I'm not a negative person. Connectivity is always good. It doesn't cost much. Only about 3 crores of rupees, Nepalese rupees. Why don't we start sailing our own ship in the high sea? Has not other landlocked countries done? We can make it happen. 274 billion US dollar equivalent cost of Rashtra Bank, good foreign currency hard earned by our Nepalese, are going for logistics and insurance costs. Nepal government recently has said that all insurance has to be done here. 78 insurance company to 28 insurance company. Now all insurance for freight and other things are happening within Nepal. Why not nominate freight forwarding logistics service providers and keep that money within Nepal, control within Nepalese, intermodal transport company, whichever one company can become the main company, and we associate with them and they lease a vessel. We don't only carry Nepalese cargo, we carry cargo from Port Kelang, we'll carry cargo for Calcutta, we'll carry cargo for Bangladesh. All these cargos will help us to overcome our own costs, the operational costs. And the cost for Nepal, will publish a rate. This is the cost for this month. This is the cost for 3 months, like how IATA does in International Air Transport Association does. And based on that, the guaranteed landed cost is here. The businessmen cannot cheat on any, insurance and freight costs. The anti-money laundering acts will be more effective. The right cost, right revenue will be generated here, and it is better to market the manage the market also. So we are not thinking about fulfilling the dreams of our Prime Minister who said we can run a ship. We can, provided we have that way. We are talking about petty things like inland transport way. It is very easy. We've also spoken to the head of the inland transport way in India. He is ready to give it to us. If it doesn't happen, Bangladesh and India has already agreed that for transshipment, a Bangladeshi company can move it. We have the document with us. We can do it easily. We can use the same mode of transportation and start. But why aren't we not thinking about bringing our own ship, handling ourselves? Why do we have to give it to all the foreign countries, Maersk from Denmark, or APL, or to others? We need to think into that point as well. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take the response from the panelists and then we'll move for the second round of Q&A. Maybe some of the queries, if I may So then, what is the benefit to India? And then policy level hurdles, trade and transatlantic treaties, and the problem of balancing the kind of two-way traffic cargo and operationality, etc. So maybe we can start from Belva session.
Thank you very much. Actually, there are very genuine comments coming from commerce and trade sector, and of course, Lamaji and others. Actually, what is the benefit to India? When I talk with Inland Waterway Authority of India, the Vice Chairman, he told me that actually India has lost 50 years by not developing inland waterway. So that is the thing they have realized. From 2014 only, they are doing inland navigation development so aggressively. They are intending to bring cargo, vessels of 2,500 metric ton. That's the benefit to India. It's cheaper. Not only cheaper, it's also going to avoid the traffic congestion. Some of the roads are heavy. How long you are going to expand the roads? How many lanes you are going to develop? How much land you are going to acquire for this? Actually, this is the alternative way of transporting the goods. So this is a new mode of transport being going to be developed, and it's taken very aggressively in India. This is what I saw in my recent visit. So therefore, obviously there is a benefit to India. And what about developing inland navigation in Nepal? The rivers flowing from Nepal to joining Ganges. Of course, they also have got benefit out of it, definitely. How much benefit I cannot say, but there is a benefit. Second is what is barrage is doing. Barrage is not an issue actually. We can have a technically lock or whatever it is, bypass channels can be developed. There is no problem as such. Actually, the points, some of the points raised by Rajanji is, what I can say is, of course, there are a lot of hassles, there are a lot of problems in the trading, transshipment, or from one mode of transport to another mode of transport, hassles in QPT and Haldia. I know that, but that will, that is one part. Technically, what I can say is, what I am planning to, this is my personal opinion, which is yet to be, at the government level, yet to be decided. Personally, as Deepak sir has already mentioned, that the downstream benefit, what Nepal is going to get downstream benefit out of the reservoir. Anyway, you are going to release the Budi Gandaki, water from the Budi Gandaki reservoir. The dry season, it is, I'm sure it is going to be 150, more than 150 cumecs. So if you are adding 150 cumecs in the system in the dry season in Narani River and in Gandak River, what does it mean? You are going to get more depth. That means, I talked with the shipbuilders in Calcutta. They told me that even with 1.6 meter depth, we can run the vessels 600 metric ton. The economy of that is, if you are moving your vessels from, for example, Dastunga, I'm saying Dastunga because that's up to that point absolutely no problem to operate the vessels. From Dastunga to the Indian Ocean, where the mother ship can directly transship the cargo into the 600 metric ton. For example, one vessel, no transshipment at all. If you have your one vessel, as Rajanji has mentioned that, If you have your one vessel of larger size, you can transit many 10 or 12, whatever the number is, 600 metric ton vessels without any transshipment in India. You can directly come to Daston. That is technically possible. It's not dream actually. This is very much doable. Only thing is, of course, in the beginning, of course, it takes. If you have to walk 100 miles, at least you have to start a step. The first step has to be started. Otherwise, you cannot travel 100 miles or 1,000 miles, whatever it is. So therefore, there is a scope and there is a hope. I'm really disappointed that how come this commerce and trade communities are not so much positive towards it. There is a possibility, and technically it is possible. You can build vessels with aluminium having which can have a very low draft, and you can run in the rivers. Of course, there are challenges. You need to have a continuous dredging system and all sort of things. But currently, somebody was talking about how to dispose the silt. There are the dredging machines which just create the turbulence and remove the silt, and which is going to deposit it down somewhere where already the deep pool is. So the silt is managed itself in the river. This is what Indians are going to do in the Ganges River. So technologically everything is possible. We are going to, of course, this is not. It's not that easy as I'm talking, but of course we have to. Unfortunately, we could not take, which I was planning to do actually initially. In fact, I was not at the time when the government decided who is going to participate in this technical scoping mission to India. Actually, I was also planning to take people from the business communities to observe what they are going to do. They are doing, and what are the hassles are, what are the problems are. So there is a lot of scopes. We really need to work together. It's a joint effort. There are problems, but we can really solve, and there is, I can see, very clear, bright future of the navigation and reducing the cost of transportation in Nepal. Thank you very much.
Let me respond to some questions, especially the student from Durham University. The mood of the house reminds me of was it T.S. Eliot, who said, the path to hell is shaped by good intentions. I don't think this is the case really. I think the intentions are good, and I think there is an adequate, rational approach towards it as well. So I don't think you should find devils in an approach which seems to be, for once, between India and Nepal, seems to be doable and feasible. So I think there has to be a positive frame in looking at this issue. You discussed what are the benefits for India. That's a very transactional question. Sometimes benefit goes beyond just the transit fees which India might charge, may not charge. There are various benefits. For example, aspect of augmentation itself of the rivers. You can't have navigation without augmentation. So the flow pattern is very important for us. Remember, a lot of this is initiated by India's own Inland Waterways Act. We are, as Madhav said, aggressively following this Inland Waterways scheme. So obviously, the other rivers, the trans-boundary rivers that connect to it, is something beneficial for us. Right? You don't have to look at international relations always from a transactional lens. Sometimes it's just sheer functionalism of the region itself, of the relationship between India and Nepal that can drive a cooperation. We are partners. India is no longer big brother, guardians and all that stuff. We are partners in this exercise. And the rivers tell us that it's partnership that will move us forward. The choice is obviously for Nepal. There could be many choices that Nepal can think about. But moving away from being essentially landlocked to finding opportunities of access is something very important for people. And navigation of inland waterways does not need to be looked at in isolation. It's part of a larger trade and transit agreement. So obviously the bilateralism of that, the dimensions of that agreement will have to be debated, talked about and dialogued with new ideas and new approaches. So there's not a dead-end sort of agreement. It's a very evolutionary and evolving agreement. And there's always room for improvement. So I think that element is quite important. I mean, India and Nepal, as I said, has to look at opportunity structures. Whatever be the challenge, I think the opportunity structures has to be defined now. The Inland Waterways does define that opportunity structures. I would just leave with one thought. I think when you look at China and when you look at US, both have developed their navigational abilities, the inland waters ability, quite well. But remember, both also have tremendous storage capacity. China and the US. And I think the storage linked to navigational facilities or the inland waterways is something that we need to reflect upon.
All three of you guys. I mean, the first one, Durham, is a nice university. I've been there many times. Okay, it's 2 months ago. I was in Bihar as part of a Nitish Kumar thing on East India. I think it was a Mamta D versus Nitin Bhai competition. Never figured it out. But what Nitish Kumar said in that meeting was really interesting. But the first thing he said was, we've sent a barrage at Buxar to transport whatever it was to be transported, and is stuck in a sandbar in Buxar where the Ganges enters Bihar from UP. And we can't get it out. I had to respond and say, well, that's precisely why, you've got to rethink the Kosi project and you've got to rethink the Gandhar project. The reason is, this navigation on the Ganga, Brahmaputra is a different story, but on the Ganga, it's not going to happen unless storages are developed in the Himalaya. Nepal Himalaya, Uttarakhand Himalayas, Sikkim, Arunachal, that area. But on Ganga, definitely Nepal, Uttarakhand and Himachal, part of it, you have to develop storage projects. And Madhavji just gave you some figures. Let me give you another blunt figure on he gave a Budiganda kit. Take Karnali or Mahakali or anyone, I'm just giving you raw average figures, I mean, the dry season flow in a river like Mahakali or Karnali, the dry season, the flow is only about 300 around cubics, even lower sometimes, okay? The flood flow is anywhere from 15 to 20,000. You build one storage dam, like Pancheshwar, like Chisapani High Dam, okay? Then that low flow of about 300 cubics in the dry season becomes anywhere from 2 to 6,000 cubics. Now immediately look at the kind of navigation potential on that. The challenge here is going to be that more in India than in Nepal actually, but we should be cognizant and part of the debate in India. In India currently the hydrocracy is dominated by the irrigation folks, whose philosophy is suck the river dry and fill it back with sewer. Okay. With navigation, you have to come back and say this much stored water has to go for navigation. That allocation has to be done. There are, don't forget, 7, I believe, Indian states on the Ganga, and each one of them will have a voice. Nepal is going to be a side show on that. Let's not forget, we're just a side show. We should be there talking, especially when it comes to drowning our villages to build the storage dams. And the second, the question that was asked, the value, not just to Nepal. The point is Nepal has to really debate and discuss, what is the value to us of access to the sea as a landlocked country. Switzerland has access from Basel to, the North Sea in Netherlands. What is to us the value of easy access to sea with container trade and everything else through this inland navigation thing versus the cost to us of drowning our villages to create those storages? And it's a very serious debate. It's really, economics is a poor second cousin to trying answering that question. We should do the economics, but economics shifts because the value here is going to be decided by trade-offs between sectors that really cannot be economically, it's apples and oranges. So where as Nepalis are we willing to sacrifice what to get what? And then the value to India of this is so immense to the 7 major Indian states where 500 million people live, 500 million, 500 million, that we are just going to be, I don't know, sideshow, and we'll benefit tremendously. So this is where we have to go. And finally, On this, I think Rajanji gave a brilliant presentation. Actually, that's the crux of the issue. Engineering is textbook engineering, not rocket science. We'll always build canals. Building a wall on a river or a side of a river or puncturing a tunnel hole in the mountain is not rocket science. It's well-known science. With tunnel boring machines coming into Nepal, it's going to be even much easier now. Okay. The problem is, in the figures that was given to us, the 39 days, and Suresh said it was about 14 days, right? Now, the actual time of travel of freight is one thing. The jhamela and hassle that you mentioned is another. So if I take the 39 days figure here and the 14 days that's actual travel time, then 25 days time is hassle time. Plus the theft in the Calcutta port, the Marxist controlled trade unions in Calcutta port, it's a disaster for India, for Indian Northeast and for Nepal as well. This Bimaru state concept that you might have heard, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, these Bimaru states of India backward and all, unlike Gujarat and Maharashtra and all. Well, Indian Northeast and Nepal added to that Bimaru. Why? Because we are completely under the control. Indian Northeast, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Nepal are under the control, and Madhya Pradesh are under the control of Calcutta port trade unions, which create this disaster. Okay, so until that is handled, now China was a big factor here. Our dear Indian friends keep saying, how can Nepal do this? Calcutta is so near, 1,000 kilometers. China, Tianjin is 3,000 or whatever kilometers it is. I've always said that, when that thing came, the container came from Tianjin as a pilot thing, I was told it was 12 days. And then it's 2 days less than from Calcutta for 3,000, because the Chinese have got far, far better infrastructure and travel, railway lines and all. And then the hassle is nowhere near 25 days there. The Chinese, especially in Hong Kong, I mean, the time is money. They won't talk to you if you're spending 2 extra minutes with them. So this is extremely important to realize. And also that elephant in the room that we talked about, I mean, this is something our Indian friends really have to do some serious homework, the blockade. I had to tell in a JNU discussion we had, I was part of, this argument was brought that it's only 1,000 kilometers to Calcutta, that Tianjin is 3,000, what are Nepalese doing and all. I have to say, I'm sorry, where did you get that figure? Okay, yeah, I understand Tianjin is 3,000 kilometers, but Calcutta is not 1,000 kilometers from Nepal. It's 370,000 kilometers. And that's the distance from Birgans to the moon. Now, if you do a blockade, Calcutta or even Roxol might as well be on the moon. Now, these are where the real problems are. Hopefully, given the kind of goodwill that Mr. Modi coming 3-4 times to Nepal is trying to do, we should reciprocate, Yeah, it was bad, the blockade, and this is not the first blockade, this is the third blockade. The second blockade was even worse, 13 months, and the one by Indira Gandhi in whatever it was, 1972, I think it was, was even worse, okay? But, okay, let's keep that behind. I think our dear Indian friends have also learned a lesson that it backfired, okay? As the Americans are realizing, in Cuba, 60 years of blockade didn't. Fidel Castro laughed his way to the grave with 13 American presidents, behind him. Blockades and these sanctions don't work. Okay. So I think our Indian friends have also learned that lesson. Now let's move forward and see if we can do this new exploration. And I think that's why I'm excited by this. The new potential and possibility. Thank you.
I'm Dr. Arun Thakur. I'm from the SEDA. I'm Executive Director of the SEDA, Trivandrum University. Just I'm supporting all the speech of the fellows or whatever who are just exploring all these facts. I'm fully convinced with this. But I want to say one thing. From very beginning, what we Nepalese are using our water resources. How we are using. When I was very small, I was reading in the school. Then once upon a time, Chandrasekhar came to Nepal. I was in the intermediate level at that very time. And one reporter or one journalist asked him, what about your water resources? What you are paying for that? And nowadays also, once I visited in the think tank meeting in Bangladesh, Dhaka, then our one just embassy officer asked me, No, sir, don't talk with India. They wanted to use our that water resource free of cost. But Chandrasekhar was also telling about that at that very time, that once you are not using yourself and it is already flowing to India, can you just check that very flow of the water? Then they have no answer. So just I want to tell you one thing, that once we are not in a position to use our water resources with our own potentials, with our own capital, then once Modi has facilitating us, then why we are just opposing it? First is that because we have no any other ways. If we are able to utilize it, then all right. But it is already flowing to India. And our tarai is very much just problematic by not using so. We are unable to produce even a crops with the by using that very water resources. These are the problems. But I want to, as a student of management, I know that every opportunity has certain threat. Right? You know about the SWOT analysis. What is our strength? What are our weaknesses? You all know. Everyone, the politicians have the good idea to throw an issue, and they are using just using every manner whatever they wanted to do so, and they are utilizing our sentiments only. But once the our Prime Minister just has such dream, then we might have to support first for the sake of the development. We are telling that we have to just develop our country. Then why not in this way also? This has the measure. I want to say one thing, that first India has the major opportunity that once they are using this flow, navigation is started, then certainly they can manage the flood disaster management can be made by India. That is a big question. I was in Viratnagar for 25 years and I saw the position of the Kosi River, and the national crisis has been declared by India. How much cost they have? Then first, and nothing more is that once they utilize our river, big rivers, for that very purpose, by investing them, and they are not able to invest without any proposal, means water management or that is the flood disaster management can be made by India. Simple logic in my thought. That is the big one of the opportunity to India. If we agree to do so, one thing is that and second, for us ourselves, once we conserve the Himalaya, I know, being a citizen of the Tarai, I know what is the problem of Tarai. Problem is all the sands are being flowed to the Tarai. Just there is and the Tarai land is very much unproductive one nowadays. Even 3 months crops, 3 months need of the food cannot be managed by the Taraian people nowadays, in these days, right? So that I want to say that it has the big relation with the Himalayas, as the former minister told very much sincerely. That is the storage of the water at the Himalayan. They cannot be stored in the plain region. Once you store the water in the Himalayan region, then it has the multiple effect. You can preserve the forest. You can recharge the mountain, which has the multiple effect. You know better. I should not have to explain more. That after that, those waters can be used for the inland. That is the inland waterways can also be made. Already experts have told about that. Right, by checking at the different places, right, water stored can be made, and inland water. Why we are not wanting to use it? Yes, we have the water landways, we have the airways, but someone is wanted to facilitate us, then why we are just aggressive, not aggressive to do so? That is the one of the reason is that. Once you conserve the Himalayan region, then certainly it has the effect on the Chure. Chure forest can also be just managed. Nowadays, once you just plant one tree there, then because of the water, because of the lack of water, it cannot be grown up. So just once in a 2 minutes. Then these are the multiple effects which are being, all these have provided us opportunity to just grab the opportunity for the sustainable development from a different perspective. Right? So I agree with all those experts, whatever they have explained, but problems are, and that can be managed by a number of, nowadays a technical, this is a technical age, that everything is in your own village, you can bring it and you can exploit it, and in my thought, it is a very much good opportunity to us. Just let us see, this much time we have just lapsed, like, but nowadays this is the we are very much aware about the many problems has been explored. Right? But a problem, whatever explored by us, we should be very much sincere towards the policy makers. Why such type of policies are being not made? Please correct it, immediately correct it, and from this just a seminar, we should have to raise it. Because we people always raise the question in the seminar forum only, not towards the politicians. So that just I want to request you that accept it and want to utilize, want to grab the opportunity, whatever came to us, and it is a very much worthy one, and a good, thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir, thank you. This is the beauty of this course, and thank you for your remarks. So now we come to the, sure.
All I want to say is I was not negative. Mr. Belbasi considered that, we are not negative. I said all this is already happening. We can make it happen tomorrow. We just don't have the will. It is not only inland waterway. We can have our access from the economic zone of India, sea economic zone, from the high sea to Calcutta and bring it by rail, or we can also do it others. I was only talking about when there is no, when there is so much of issues which we cannot address and we cannot make things happen. When we are going to a new subject or a new way, can our bureaucracy, can our friends in the government or the politician negotiate with India to make it easy for doing business? That is the biggest question here. Because the Indians have the habit of asking too much of documents. The port dwell time as per the Calcutta port trust itself is 3 days. So you can imagine. Now, and if they start saying that they want their own Indian railways to move the goods, or their own barges to move the goods, will not allow Nepalese barges to move the goods. We know that there are different type of barges, 2.5 meters also it can come to Ganda. Those studies have been done. We are not negative, we are positive, but we are afraid that our bureaucracy and our government cannot make a right negotiation with the government of India and make things worse for us. That is the afraidness.
I sincerely like to express gratitude to our distinguished panelists for accepting our invitations and sharing their thought-provoking ideas to this very distinguished gathering here. So we have a small program to express our sincere gratitude. I'd like to request CEO of IDA KCG to provide the token of love to our distinguished panelists. So may I request Sunilji to provide token of love to Honorable Former Minister Deepak Gyamali, sir. Similarly, I also like to request to provide token of love to Mr. Madhav Belbasi, sir, Joint Secretary of Water and Energy Commission Secretariat. I also like to request to provide the token of love to Mr. Sauri S.B. Rana, President of Nepal in the Chamber of Commerce, Nikin. Similarly, we would like to request to provide a token of love to Dr. Uttam Sinha, Senior Fellow of NWML. And finally, to Ms. Dichashin, Research Officer of South Asian Awards on Trade, Economics and Environment, Swati. So here we conclude our seminar. So I'd like to request all the distinguished guests and participants to enjoy the dinner and networking. So thank you very much for your kind participation.